Welcome to Brave. Be inspired by the best leaders of Southeast Asia tech. Build the future, learn from our past, and stay human in between. I'm Jeremy Au, a VC, founder, and father. Join us for transcripts, analysis, and community at www.jeremyau.com. Hey, Joseph. So happy to have you on the show.
Hi, Jeremy. Really excited to be here as well. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for coming on because I'm really excited to share about not only your really intense journey as a founder and building a company from scratch to where you are today, but you're also tackling a very key problem, right? Of really digitizing hotel operations in this really incredible and straightforward way from my perspective. So I'm really excited to hear your story. So for those who don't know you yet, how would you share and explain who you are?
Well, my name is Joseph. I'm the founder and CEO of Vouch. And at Vouch, we work with hotels to build digital concierges that increase productivity, boost revenue, and elevate the guest experience. I'm a 34-year-old father of three. It's been a really, really challenging journey starting up while juggling a relatively large family. In fact, work from home has been especially brutal, especially brutal. Um, I love playing football, although I haven't had much time to play football the last few years. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's me.
When I first kind of like heard about you, I knew that you had obviously first started out in the civil service, and that's where you kind of like first started your career. Could you tell me us a little bit more about why you joined them in the early days, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Maybe how I can tell this story is that it revolves around my motivations. When I was in when I was back studying in university, I was actually really, really motivated by money, right? I mean, as sad as that was, I was really motivated by money. Initially, in my early years, I was thinking about, hey, you know what? Why don't I try to go to become an investment banker because that's where the money is, right? And then later on in year three, year four, I started to see, hey, it looks like there's this whole startup ecosystem that's coming up. People seem to be making money out of it. Why don't I go start up my own company? And so I did. I started thinking about that. How can I do that? How can I begin starting up? And there was a scholarship offer that came along from Spring Singapore. Now it's called ESG, where the tagline of it was "Be your own boss." The intention of the scholarship was really to nurture a new generation of entrepreneurs, a new generation of people who can start up, who can run their own SMEs, which can eventually grow into MNCs. So when I saw that scholarship, I decided, hey, let me go for it. Let me take it up, and I bid for it, and I applied for it. I got it, and then that's how I ended up at Spring in the civil service. When I was at Spring, I think that motivation still remained. It was mainly about money. I wanted to start up so that I could make it big, earn lots of big bucks and all that. And I learned as much as I could over there. I was inside the innovation and startups group, so dealing directly with startups. Specifically, I was dealing with startup financing, looking at how making sure that there's enough Series A, B, C funding, and I learned a lot. And right on the dot, at the end of my scholarship, I actually left. And I remember when I left, the HR came up to me and said, "Hey, Joe, you're actually inside the government. There's this thing called CEP. I can't remember what it stands for. Basically, they give you they kind of map out your potential. So they were telling me that, hey, your CEP is really, really high. If you stay at Spring, you're probably going to go really, really far." But I immediately told them that, hey, I wanted to start up. This isn't really going to stop me. So I left after 2 years. I had this misconception where I thought, if I'm going to be a tech founder, I got to learn how to code. So then I started learning how to code. I spent 18-hour days stuck in a room learning how to code for 6 months. Managed to pick up full stack engineering where I could build the infrastructure, deploy front end facing apps, and started to do projects for different players like Marigold, building apps for them. And at some point, I decided, okay, enough is enough. I think I've learned how to build tech products. Let me go start up. And so I started the company. I started Vouch at the point in time, 2016 February. And at that point in time, we were really doing something completely different from what we do now. I was looking at how do we use big data to help retailers better target their customers through advertising. So the intention was to collect data from all these big retailers, put them together, and if let's say at the surface level, let's say we see that 60% of people that shop at Nike also shop at Cotton On. Next on, someone shops at Nike, we can give them a voucher for Cotton On. So that's actually why we're called Vouch, because we were using vouchers as the vehicle through which we deliver value, right? But unfortunately, at that point in time, being a first-time entrepreneur, I had this impression that you build something useful, people will come. We built something that no one was willing to pay for. So the biggest mistake that we made over there was we built a platform that I thought was useful, hired a team to do it, got a government grant, hired a team, built something, and turns out that none of the retailers were willing to pay for it. They would always tell me, "Yeah, you add this feature, then I'll pay for it." And when we add the feature, they'll say, "No, no, you add this other thing, and then I'll pay for it." And that was when I realized at some point that they were really never going to pay for it. We ran out of money. I had to let everybody go, a really painful experience. And then we had to pivot. So at this point in time, my motivations were starting to change as well. I started to rather than going for the money, I was thinking, hey, you know what? I don't really care about the money. What I've been doing in the last 6 to 8 months has been really meaningful. What I really want to do is create something that is of value to the people that use it. And that's when the motivations really started changing. So our first pivot was towards chatbots for for social commerce. Chatbots for people selling things on Facebook in Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam. They're actually quite a number. This was a number of years ago, before Facebook came up with their marketplace and all that. And what we were trying to do was, and the problem that we were trying to solve was this. We realized that as with Carousel, people ask stupid questions. You have the description over there. This thing has warranty until this date. People still ask, does this thing have warranty? And these sellers on Facebook, they were running a business where their entire livelihood was based around Facebook selling. They were getting like 90 to 100 queries every single day. It was just unsustainable for them. So what we offered to them was this app where they press one button, it would deploy onto their Facebook page, automatically parse what they were selling, and answer these questions automatically. Sellers loved it, the buyers not so much, which we only realized later on. So we were able to get significant traction very quickly, just by word of mouth. And these guys were paying for it. We wanted to make sure that we didn't make the same mistake the first time around. We started charging these guys right off the bat. Now, the problem came, the second time around came when we realized that the buyers weren't buying at the same rate that they were doing before our app was installed. And it turns out that social commerce is actually a pretty complicated animal. People will say, if I buy A, B, and C, can you give me a discount? And chatbots are horrible at negotiating on this sort of thing, right? So when that happened and the sellers realized that their revenue was dipping, they all started to churn. And we really couldn't stem the tide of that churn. Churn rate was like 90%, that kind of really, really high number. We tried whatever we could to salvage the situation, realized that it really wasn't salvageable, and we ran out of money a second time. And that was when I had to let everybody go again. Horrible, horrible experience for the second time. And it was a really big turning point where um, at this point, my wife was pregnant with our third child, my third daughter. We had no money. I had already pumped in all my life savings into the company. I think we had like $3,000 back in our personal account. Company had like 300. We were pregnant with our third child, all the threes, right? So nicely lined up. And yeah, and I had to make the decision, was I going to continue trying to figure something else out on my own because I had to let go of everyone, or was I going to start finding another job? I got a couple of job offers, really, really lucrative job offers, but I thought, you know what, let me just give this one more shot and see where it takes us. So I started to look for opportunities where we could use the chatbot technology that we had created to service companies, service businesses, and we were able to bring in a few deals. I was able to bring in a few deals, generate a bit of revenue, use what we had built in a different manner, pivot a little bit, building chatbots for anyone and everyone. So we were able to bring in a little bit of revenue. I managed to convince a couple of angel investors to put in money to float the company a bit more. And that's where we started to bring in significant revenue. And then our real turning point actually came when we started working with hotels. The Singapore Tourism Board, they actually had this Hotels Innovation Challenge where they invited hotels to come to a conference way back when pre-COVID, when there were still conferences, and see whether there were any technology solution providers that they were interested in adopting. And at this point, we were able to bring in Andas Singapore, which was under the Hyatt family. This GM that was a visionary and really, really brave. He said, you know what, I think that chatbots can really help hotels. Can you come and develop one for me? I will pay you for it. And so we started working with Under Singapore, and we built a chatbot to answer queries for their call center and for their front desk. Very quickly, we realized that the ROI over there was really, really high. We were able to significantly reduce the number of queries that went to their front desk and to their call center. And One thing led into another. We actually used the data that we gathered to continue building new products, and we're here where we are now, where we now have more than 25% of the Singapore market, and we're deployed in 10 different countries around the world, uh, and we're growing really, really fast. So that's the journey of the company. That's the journey as an entrepreneur that I experienced. It was a really tough journey. Um, I believe it still continue to be tough, but all these experiences have made me who I am today.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I knew the story, but it still kind of like, shakes me even, kind of hearing it again now. So obviously we'll talk about the company and what you're approaching on the second half of it. And I think it's very
Sure.
disruptive and honestly innovative. But let's also talk about, what's kind of going on for you, right? Because, you know, the thing I want to zoom in on is like, okay, there you are, and basically your boss at Spring Singapore, is basically saying, hey, you're doing a great job working with our startups and our angel investor and our business partners and ecosystem, and basically they're saying like you have a fast track slash promotion in the future, and you still say no, I want to build something. What was that like? How did you make that decision?
So I think it's the classic question that all entrepreneurs need to grapple with, right? How do you weigh up your opportunity cost? But for myself, I think my decision was a lot easier, and it's a little bit because of my upbringing and also because of the way that I see this. So my parents have always been very, very supportive of everything that I do. Even though they put me through the good schools, made sure that I got good results, all the way, my mom had always maintained, you know what, you do what you want to do. You don't have to become a doctor. You don't have to become a lawyer. You don't have to earn big bucks. It doesn't matter. Just do something that you're happy doing. So when I decided to leave my job in the civil service, I never had that sort of baggage that many other people have, where their family would tell them, "Hey, are you sure this is going to work out? How long do you give yourself? What happens if it doesn't work out? What's going to happen to your family?" I never had any of that. It was more of like, yeah, if you think it's gonna if you think it's gonna work, just go for it. Even if it doesn't work, what's the worst that could happen, right? And that was also why I was thinking, what is the worst that could happen? So to me, the way that I saw this opportunity cost was like this. I was looking at it and thinking, even if I start up and I fail and I lose all my money, right? With the kind of credentials and the track record that I have, I probably can get a job somewhere else. And I'm not picky, right? I could get a job doing maybe earning low 3,000s, that kind of thing, and I'd still be okay. Something to survive, something to get by. So I never ever had that fear that, okay, what if I lose out? Or I never ever thought about it the way that many people think about, where I'm sure they start thinking, okay, now I'm earning 6K, 10K a month. If I go at this for 2 years, how much am I losing out? It never ever occurred to me that way. So I've never seen money as something that is hard to come by, or is something that will be difficult to earn. I've never ever, I always lead a simple life. Even now, I don't have a car. I live in a HDB flat. The only thing that I splurge a little bit on is maybe tech, like my iPad Pro, my iMac. Other than that, really, I don't spend. I don't drink. I don't smoke. So all these vices, not there. I don't have to spend on it. So I lead a simple life, and so money hasn't really ever been a problem. Yeah, it did motivate me when I was younger to make lots of money, but it was never. I never ever saw it as and something that should hold me back from what I wanted to do. Yeah. So the decision was really, really easy. And to me, in the civil service, one of the things that struck me was that everything that I do there probably has a really long lead time before I start to see results. Whatever I do in the strategy and policy department, implementing new things, I probably can only see results 5 years, 10 years down the road. And I really wasn't happy with that. I wanted to it wasn't instant gratification that I was looking for, but I wanted to make a difference right now. And so those was one of the big factors that pushed me to leave. Yeah. So it was really an easy decision. Even when the HR folks started and my boss started telling me, hey, you have a bright future here, why don't you stay on? I never actually thought twice about it. It was like it doesn't matter to me. Yeah.
Oof, that was like must have been a quite an interesting experience because it was both a simple one for you, right? Even though for most people that's the scariest one, right? We're just leaving a full time job to do a startup. But it feels like the next, decision, which was like you build the first approach. Yeah, a lot of people, kind of fail the first time they build something, right? Because not sure about what to build and what the demand is and so on and so forth. So the more interesting decision actually is the second decision you made, right? Which was to keep going, right? Because there you are, you're out of cash, right? You put some money in as well. So that's actually the more interesting decision because now you know what entrepreneurship is, right? And now you know what the cost is, right? Because when you're leaving, I think for me, it was like when you leave a job, you don't know like what's it like to let go of people. You don't know what's it like to build a company. You don't
Yeah.
know what's it like to like let it go and move on. So the second decision you had to make, where you now know the opportunity cost has been made real, because you've spent that opportunity cost over what 2 years, and then you also feel the real cost, right? So why did you decide to keep going? Yeah.
That's a really great question, Jeremy. And I mean, I can't really say for sure. I mean, I can't really say for sure whether it was pride, whether it was raw confidence, or whether it was a crazy decision. But what I did know was that entrepreneurship, building something that really matters to people, is something that I want to do. Uh, to me, at that point in time, I felt that I had options. If I gave it one last shot, even if I had like zero in the bank account, even I gave it one last shot, I still had that family support. My family is by no means rich or wealthy, but I have three siblings and my parents, and in the worst case, they would be able to help out for a while. So to me, it was yeah, just go for it, right? And we'll deal with what happens later on. And I don't and there is a soft landing for me. There was a soft landing. It wouldn't be like a lot of money in my family that they can support me and all that, but I knew that my siblings, my parents my wife would be there to support me no matter what. My wife was working at this point in time, so it wasn't that bad.
So it feels like you had the first decision was relatively simple because you didn't know what was really at cost or at play. The second time you did it is too straightforward because you felt like you still could keep going. But the third time you make a decision to keep going was even tougher, right? Because now, like you said, you have another kid, a third kid, you're pregnant. You've done it twice now. So that would be enough to knock, you know, uh, sense into anybody, right? About what is
Sense.
actually a cost, right? I mean, it's tough, right?
Yeah. So I think the way that I thought about it was maybe I didn't have common sense, right? But the way that I thought about it, hey, we've run out of money twice. I've learned these lessons along the way. It only gets easier, right? So for example, the first time around, I learned that you don't build something that nobody wants. Make sure that people are willing to pay for it. And that's something that we always do right now at Vouch. Whenever we launch new products, we make sure that we get customers to pay for it. Sometimes even before we build anything. We The second time around was more about product market fit, where we need to make sure that the product really works well for them, uh, despite the different challenges that might come up. We need to find a way to get whatever we build to work for them. Even if they initially like it really has to work for their market. Otherwise, they're gonna churn. So we also took that, and we learned from it. We made sure that we didn't make the same mistake. So when I was considering whether to try it one more time, how I rationalized it was, hey, I've learned all these lessons. I could choose to try it again sometime down the road, find a job first and then later on try again, or I could try to go it again and see what comes out of it. Um, and I remember one of the things that I was thinking about is that, hey, I'm still young. At that point in time, I think I was 30, 31, 30, 31. Yeah. And if I don't do this now, who knows, right? What if the fourth kid comes along, the fifth kid comes along? It's going to get harder and harder for me from a commitment point of view. And I think that I also didn't want to get sucked into the corporate lifestyle, where people get sucked in, they start earning a certain amount of income, they start building a lifestyle that requires that level of income to sustain. So it really gets harder and harder. So the way that I rationalized was that I've learned all these things, they're still fresh in my memory. Before I become too heavily burdened with life's commitments, why not just give it another shot? And I mean, at that point in time, I was thinking, okay, this is the last shot that I'm going to give it. But then again, now that I reflect, the first time we made a decision, second time we made a decision, I was also thinking the same thing. Let me just give it one last shot. I'm not sure that would have been my last shot if we didn't find some sort of success over there. But yeah, this was how I rationalized it. I felt that I had all these lessons fresh in my mind before things get too heavy. Let me just try it again. And it was clear to me that I should try it again. I didn't really dawdle on that decision. Yeah. So it didn't get harder. There were more considerations, but it was still clear to me. Yeah.
Wow. I can't imagine how tough it was each time around. And I think you also said something which was very true, right? Which is that you learn something each time around, right? From that failure. And I think a lot of founder friends I know end up, they fail somewhere along the way, right? And they just walk out thinking they're a failure, right? And the interesting part is there's also something they learned, right? And if they have that self awareness, which I think most of them do, they actually can do a better shot the second time around, right? The third time around.
Exactly.
So in some ways, like you shouldn't quit too early, and you should play the second or third time more wisely compared to the first time you play it, right? And I think that's hard because I think a lot of founders kind of do it the other way around, which is if I do it once, I fail, that means I have no more tries at whatever it is. And all the stuff I learned is irrelevant, which is, I think, a very, pessimistic way, right, of looking at it. And I think it's
But
the scary
I,
part
I
of it.
also I also think that it's not for everyone. I was in a really fortunate solution because I had a soft landing. I had family that supported me. It was as much as I would love to seem like, oh, hey, look, I made all these tough decisions to I'm a hero. It really wasn't like that. To me it was an obvious decision. It wasn't really that much of a struggle. But like I said, I don't think it's for everyone. In fact, many of the times when we have interns or when people ask me, "Hey, should I start up? I have this great idea." Sometimes I joke like, "No, don't. It's gonna kill you. You're gonna feel like shit for 5 years. You're gonna not have a salary for 3 years. That kind of thing." I mean, I half jokingly say that. Part of me actually means it. I think it's really not for everyone. Um, yeah. So I think it can be tough for many people. But I was one of the lucky ones. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. And I too also make that joke because it's like there was a nice Harvard did this analysis and it was like if you take all the founders and you look at their earnings, right, including the payouts, etc. So it's a function of obviously founders who succeed versus founders who don't succeed.
Yeah.
And obviously when founders succeed, there's also small success and there's large success, right? So you
Yeah.
sum all of that up and you look at their expected lifetime earnings, is actually lower than that of you staying at a job in aggregate,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So the average founder is going to make less than if you stayed at your job.
Exactly. And there's a survivorship bias, right? There's a survivorship bias. So people only remember the successes, but they really don't see the 99 other people that didn't succeed.
Exactly. And I think that's the crux of it, right? Which is that if you actually look at that analysis, yeah, the truth is becoming to be a founder is suboptimal if your maximization is actually making money, right?
Yep.
So it's interesting because of two dimensions, right? The first dimension is that means people who want to become founders and people who are founders are much more aware about this. And so we're much more like, whoa, like don't become a founder if you want to make money because that's not the right way to think about it because you're not
Yeah.
going to do it.
Yeah.
Even though the press makes it, like I said, seem like is the easiest way to make money. And then secondly, I think you and I were kind of discussing it and around it is like the joy of being a founder is not the money per se because there isn't any for a long time. You don't pay anything yourself salary and sure there's some expected payout in the future. But it's also whether you enjoy the problem, the team, the autonomy and freedom and control of leadership, right?
That's right.
And doing those things is what many people will pay money for in that sense.
Yeah,
So I think
exactly.
it's much larger than just financial outcomes. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, one of the things that I just came to mind was that I think maybe one of the more unique things about my entrepreneurship journey is that I would say it's more opportunistic. So if you ask me, do I have a great passion for hospitality, right? Because we're in the hospitality space. I can honestly tell you no. I'm not super passionate about hospitality. But if you ask me, are you passionate about solving problems? yes, I am, and I want to solve them with maximum efficiency. So if you look at our company journey, we went from retail to social commerce to hospitality, and now we're in hospitality to stay in travel. Um, I didn't know, and I could not have foreseen back when I started the company that we would end up here. And I think that for I'm not sure about other founders, but because many founders always say that I had this dream, this vision, and this is how the world should be, and I'm going to work towards it. I actually am of the opposite view. I don't think that for many people, I don't think it happens like that. Uh, kind of stumble into it. You kind of survive to the point where you find an opportunity that coincides with a larger vision, a larger goal, which is in my case solving problems, making things more efficient, and then you grab onto that opportunity and you hold on for dear life. So I think that founders really need a lot of grit, and they should be a bit flexible about the kind of industry that they're in, or the what is the exact problem that they're solving. Yeah, so just came to mind when you were talking just now.
So, it, how do you, I mean, through all these things, like, how did you choose to be brave, right? Because each time around, you chose to pick yourself up and do it again. Are there like ways where you like found balance? Was it in family? Was it in books? Was it in mentors that help you kind of like bring out the energy to keep going?
So for me, I think that the way that I run the company, the way that I operate would have been very different if I didn't have my three children. So in a way, the three kids made things really difficult because there was a lot of energy and a lot of time needs to be dedicated to them, right? But they have also taught me patience, and they have also taught me uh, sometimes I compare myself to a rubber band, a rubber band that can stretch almost infinitely because of the stress. And I think that without the kids sort of helping me stretch a little bit more each time, training me to stretch a little bit more each time, I don't think I would be able to do what I do right now. I think that I would be a lot less patient in the way that I deal with my colleagues. I would be a lot less, and to the detriment of the company, I feel. Um, so I think the kids give me a lot of balance. The kids give me the training that I need. It has helped me also find methods to cope with the stress. Like for example, because one of the things that I've learned is that if I am really upset with one of them, one of the kids, I just force myself to laugh, and that physical laughter actually kind of switches me to think, hey, actually things aren't so bad. Let's just work through this and make sure that we stop them from screaming their heads off rather than me losing my temper and shouting at them and going berserk on them. So that also helped me in the company, right? During really stressful periods, sometimes I just force myself to laugh and then figure some other solution out of the problem, even if the problem seems intractable. So I think that the kids have really been guiding light in the way that I run the company, the way that I lead my life. And if you're talking about balance, they definitely balance me out. So more and more, I find myself trying to spend a bit more time with them, dedicate to them. Times where I put my phone on do not disturb mode and just spend that time with them because it gives me that what I need to to continue dealing with the difficulties of running a company.
So you said about, the fact that, becoming a parent has helped you become a better leader, right? And I think that's a big concern for a lot of folks, right? Because there are so many founders who are kind of like saying a bunch of different things, which are all fundamentally about a trade-off between family and being a founder, right? So some people will say like, well, I'm going to become a parent, so I shouldn't set up a startup now, right? Uh, and then other folks are like, oh, I'm a founder already, and can I have children because I'm worried that it impacts, the investor's perception of me, when I'm committed to work, or the other way of it would be I'm concerned that I won't be able to give time to the kids, or I'm concerned I won't be give enough time to the startup. And then the other people who are currently parents raising kids, and they're like, oh, can I ever be a founder because I'm a parent? I have to run all these errands and do the stuff at home, right?
Yeah.
So, like, would you have any advice or thoughts about this?
I think everyone's case is unique, right? For myself, I have a wife who is very supportive. She doesn't really care if we live in riches or we live in a dump. Well, I probably shouldn't say that. I hope she doesn't see this, but yeah, I mean, she's very, very supportive, and I remember when we had to pivot the second time, when we ran out of money the second time, I did ask her, hey, will you hate me if I decide to just give it one more shot? Then she just looked at me and she said, why would I stop you from doing what you want to do? I think in her mind, she also realized that, if she were to say no at that point in time, and I would always have this thought at the back of my head where, what if I had done this? What if I had succeeded this time around? And I don't know whether that would eventually uh, grow into resent. I don't know. So it's the way that we conduct our relationship also. We both of us, we always give each other the space, the whatever you want to do, go ahead. I will support in whatever way possible. And I think I was very fortunate to have that sort of relationship with my wife. Um, I mean, not everyone's relationship is different. I don't think that there is a one size fits all thing. With families, it's always very, very complicated. For every founder, I think it's going to be very unique to their case. And I don't think it'll be fair for me to say whether someone should go ahead and do it or not. So I guess the only piece of advice that I can give is look at your family circumstances, and if I mean, ultimately for me, I think family always comes first. So if my wife had said at that point in time, no, come on, just stop already. I don't know how far you're gonna go with this. I would have stopped. I really would have stopped, and that would have been it. Yeah, so it really depends on the person's priorities, and I guess they have to make that decision on their own.
Yeah, I think that's the heavy truth, right? I mean, the truth is that, like you said, when it comes to family and career, the truth is, if you have more resources, the trade-offs are easier, right?
Yeah,
If you have a better family, it's easier to do career. If you have a better career, it's easier to do family, right? So there's a bit of a self-reinforcing positive feedback cycle, right?
yeah,
And so I think the tricky part is just like sometimes, where it goes case by case is whether, pushing on one side or pushing on the other side it's definitely a trade-off in the short term, right? And the question is just like over the medium to long term, can you plan and structure your founder journey or your family journey in a way that makes it easier to do the other side of the feedback loop? So
yeah.
yeah, no easy answers, honestly.
Mm,
Well, so there you are, and you kind of like build out this product that suddenly starts to take off, right? And the way I think about it feels like a no-brainer to me as well, because it's basically like there's this hotel room, you're inside it, and then every time I want to order something, I have to flip open a very lousy menu,
yeah,
and then I have to press a call button, and then sometimes it gets picked up by food dining, or sometimes it doesn't. Or if my wife wants more towels, we hit housekeeping on a button, and sometimes it gets picked up and sometimes it doesn't, right? And so,
yeah.
it's a bad user experience using the room. I mean, how many times have I also called reception to set up an alarm, right?
You mean you still do that?
I still do that. Yeah.
You're one of those old school
So I
ones
think,
then.
yeah, one of the old school ones, because other people, they try to give an alarm clock and everything, but then you're like, you said, for work meetings, you normally try to do both, right? You do both the alarm clock and you still get a
To be
call
sure
from
that
your
you'll
phone.
wake
So
up. Yeah.
to be double sure, you set your phone alarm as well, right? So, and then obviously I call operator, and the poor operator has to burn, 30 seconds talking to a sleepy guy saying, sorry, did you mean 6 a.m. or 7 a.m., sir, for, the alarm, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like this is no brainer. You're digitizing that whole, every single function on that phone. And obviously it feels like it saves, it's a better experience for the guest because now you can do it in bed, you can do it in the bathroom, you can do it while you're traveling from your attraction to the hotel
No,
room,
or even from the
right?
airport to the hotel, right? On your way there, you can already start your check-in.
Yeah, you can already start that process, exactly. So it's asynchronous.
Yep.
It's better user experience. It obviously saves a ton of labor for the poor housekeeping or whatever to pick up the
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
And probably also improves like the service rate, right? Because normally if you call housekeeping and they don't pick up, then the guest gets pissed off a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it feels like it's a no-brainer to me. So I'm just kind of curious, how do you think about the benefits for what you're building?
I think that now is in the middle of this pandemic, especially now that we are starting to recover, this is a really, really critical time for hotels to think about the digital experience and how they're going to change the way that they run moving forward. So with COVID-19, you see a case where hotels around the world have retrenched many of their staff, and suddenly, when things start to recover, especially now that you're seeing in Europe where they're starting to open up, when you speak to the CEOs of hotel chains over there, they're expecting higher than 100% occupancy over the summer. Suddenly, everyone is hiring at the same time. Everyone is trying to hire the very same people that the other companies are all hiring. And many of these people have already found jobs, right? You can't expect them to go like 1 year without finding a job, right? Almost everyone has found jobs. So there's a real labor crunch over there, and in fact, many hotels also they kind of stunned. They don't know what to do because say I hire right now. Am I so sure that 6 months down the road things are going to be as rosy as it looks like for the next month? It's really hard to say with the pandemic, right? You look at how APEC went from the shining light of recovery just 3 months ago to now everything seems to be going badly. And Europe was the opposite, right? They looked like they were suffering 3 months ago. Now they're all recovering. It's summertime. Let's go out and travel and go out and have our holidays. Lockdowns are starting to be eased up. Things change so fast, right? So it's a really interesting time for hoteliers right now. It's I would say it's an impossible time for them, and this is where I think the benefits really lie. Where they're looking at these solutions like ours, and they're saying, hey, this sort of thing might be an infinitely scalable solution to our problem. I could uh, maximally depend on 4 or 5 staff, and this 4 or 5 staff could handle 100% occupancy, 120% occupancy, no problem with the help of this solution. I no longer have to hire staff at very short notice to be able to secure the same level of service for my 100% occupancy in summer. So that's how I think hotels should think about it. I think it's a great opportunity for hotels to change the way that they run, where in the past they've always thought, I'm hospitality, right? I need that human touch. I need people there to speak to my guests. But what many of them didn't realize in the past was that these interactions, not all interactions require the human touch. Where you want that human touch is where charisma, humor, creativity comes into play. Things like picking up the phone, calling the call center, I need more towels, can you wake me up at 6 a.m.? All these things require none of that. All these things can and should be automated. And that's how I think hoteliers should start to think about it. That's where the benefits come in. Remove the elements of interaction that really human touch doesn't give that extra benefit, and start letting your staff focus on where it does benefit. Things like, hey, maybe a guest wants to they lost their luggage and I need someone to help me find their luggage. The hotel staff can actually be the ones to say, hey, let me make few phone calls for you. Or if the guest and the guest is a regular and the hotel staff knows them, they know that, hey, you like Japanese food. Why don't you go to this new Japanese restaurant that opened up recently? That's where they can actually spend their time and their effort and their energies on making that guest journey and the guest experience special, rather than really picking up the phone and asking for towels. Yeah, I think hoteliers need to understand and to recognize that this is where things are heading. This is where the important side of hospitality is, and they should focus on this. All the rest of it, leave it to technology. And it's also what guests expect, right? Even before COVID, guests were already expecting self-service solutions for things like getting water bottles, but hoteliers weren't responding to it. In the surveys that we were looking at, 75%, 80% of guests were already asking for these things. But human touch always came to the fore. Said, no, I still want somebody to pick up the phone and answer these things. So guests have been asking for it. In the COVID pandemic, it's become even more important. Guests now demand these things because I want to feel safe. I want contactless solutions. I want to make sure that if I don't have to deal with a human to risk catching COVID, I don't want to do that. And so it becomes so much more poignant for hoteliers to start to deal with this in a scalable way right now. So that's how I think of the benefit. That's how I think our product and products like ours give benefits to hotels, and they really should start looking at it this way.
Yeah, and I think that's the dream, right? Which is that, at the end of the day, the hotel is out to create that best experience. It doesn't matter um, how it's done, but the fact that it is done,
Mm,
early and that is done, right? And I think that's kind of like the reinvention of like so many things, like, look at McDonald's and, they, originally thought that, there's a human touch for the cashier, etc. But it turns out that when they
yeah,
installed those like self-order kiosks,
exactly, Jeremy,
actually
exactly.
sales went up, right? Because people felt like, okay, I can ask for more stuff, more toppings, I can make a decision. And so labor costs went down and revenues went up, right? And so
Mm.
everyone's like, wow, cost goes down, revenues go up. And McDonald's suddenly is like, okay, we got to roll this out everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But it's also the same thing for like, so many things, right? Like, airplane self-checkout and check-in, same things for, shop supermarkets checkout. I think so much stuff is just reducing these very transactional jobs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And allowing humans to focus more on the relational stuff.
And I think the McDonald's example was really great. I mean, in fact, now you see the case where even if there is a cashier standing there, people go to the self-service kiosk to key in their order. So it's a really, really interesting phenomenon that we're observing, right? Where you could go to the cashier, you could just tell them what you want right there, but people still go to the self-service kiosk and take their time to select. I think there isn't that human pressure where you might start to think like, well, I need to be subconsciously you might think I need to be polite to the cashier. I don't want to wait too long. I haven't decided what I wanted yet, so I want to take my time to decide. There are all these subconscious thoughts that run through their mind, and that's why I think that the trend is towards self-service. People prefer things like that.
Yeah, which is so true because, yeah, if I have a very unique order, I don't really want to tell that to a person because I'm worried that they don't catch it all and I don't want to waste their time in that sense.
Yeah,
And also, I think there's a huge discovery component, right? Because as you play around the menu, visual menu uh, in McDonald's, you get to discover promotions, you get to discover. It's a fun experience fundamentally,
yeah,
right? To
yeah,
craft the exact meal you want to have, and it's also visual, right? Versus when you talk to someone, it's just a voice
yeah,
conversation, right? And even
yeah,
more so in a hotel, right? Which is you're dialing in, right?
yeah.
So, I think one interesting thing as well is that you've also been able to grow, right? And, when you talk about success, you've been able to grow from 0 to 1% to 2% to 4% to
Yeah.
8% to 16% and now to 25% over for the Singapore market share by hotel rooms, right?
Mm.
So, what do you think has allowed you to get from 0 to 25%?
I think this relates to one of the earlier questions, right? As in, how have we been brave? So, um, one of the really great decisions that we made was when COVID first hit. We I was thinking, is this it for us? Are we gonna die during this period? Because all the hoteliers have been hit so badly, right? Why would they be able to find the money to pay us for our services? Our revenue is probably gonna drop to zero. And in my mind, I was thinking, okay, we have a few options. Should we pivot? Should we find other industries to go into? And then I also realized that, that's probably what everyone is thinking, right? That's what everyone in the space is probably thinking about doing. Let's go find another industry that has money outside of the travel industry. So then I decided, hey, why not let's do something else? Let's double down in this space. Let's see how we can help hoteliers during this period and use this opportunity to build that relationship with them that we can then convert into paid customers in the future. And that's exactly what we did. So we took our F&B module, which was previously used for in-room dining, and we modified it to allow for delivery and takeaway. We gave it out for free to all the hotels in Singapore. And that proved to be a really, really great decision because by the end of the year, last year, we were able to convert all of them into paid customers. And because everyone leaving the market left it wide open, we were basically able to just walk in and take everything that we could get, which was really, really wonderful. And now, moving forward this year, we're actually doubling down on further on it. And what we really want to do, and what differentiates ourselves, Vouch from the rest of the competition, is that we are trying to create a new category of software for hotels, guest experience platform, or a guest experience OS, right? However you want to call it. Because hoteliers, when you set up a hotel, what you're thinking about is, okay, first thing I need to buy is my PMS, my reservation engine. PMS is property management system. My reservation engine, maybe my housekeeping software. These are the things that I need to run operationally. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to introduce a new element inside there where it's guest experience OS, guest experience platform, where they also have to think, hey, now, as my guests demand a digital experience as well, how do I give it to them? And that's why when you look at the way that we've been developing products, we started off with FAQs, and then we went to room requests, facilities booking, F&B. Now we're going to mobile check-in. We're going to a reservations concierge to service the guests even before they make their booking at the hotel in the pre-stay phase. We're looking at in the future how do we help to in the post-stay phase to get them to come back, do surveys, things like that. We're really building a guest experience platform, a guest experience layer that a hotel can come to us, and with one partner, they can take care of the entire journey. And I think that's what really separates us from the rest of the competition, and that's what we're working towards in the future. No one else is able to do this. No one else has even this vision that the same vision that we have to get out there and build this end-to-end guest experience platform. Yeah. So this is how we see the market, and this also relates to both the brave question that you asked and how we see the benefits for the hotels where it comes out.
Yeah, I think that's is a no-brainer, right? Because at the end of the day, it's just becoming that communications layer between, hospitality and customers, right? And you're just intermediating between both like the bot approach and the live, support approach, right? And
Yep.
having that graceful switch between both contexts, in the modality way, but also across the different stages of that customer experience. So it's a very organic growth process to
That's
do
right.
that. So, I think what's, interesting, one last question I have for you before we, wrap things up here is,
Mm.
when you think about, at the end of the day, for someone who's evaluating your product versus all the other products, right, in the market, right, A or B or C or whatever it is, what would you want them to take away is to say, like, this is where, Joseph and the team at Vouch are really 10x better than everybody else on?
First of all, we provide that end-to-end guest experience. We're the only company that can give them everything in one shot. When you go to a tactical level, we're really the only company that pays as much attention to UI and UX. And that's really, really important. You look at how we deploy our products. In the past, hotels still they already had self-service solutions. Download my app, right? And you could make room requests from my app. Where we did things differently was we said, hey, if I'm a guest at a hotel and I am going to stay there for 2 nights, there is no way in hell I'm going to download an app, create an account, link up my stay to make a request for bottled water. No way. There is no way. So immediately we looked at it and we said, you know what? Let's lower that barrier to entry. We're going to make it such that they scan a QR code. There is no app download needed. They can already start asking questions, make room requests without creating an account, linking up their stay. Doesn't matter. Let's do that. And because of that, we were able to get really, really high use rates inside our products. In the hotels that we work with, we power between 70 to 90% of all the transactions that happen in the hotel. So it boils down to we go even deeper, right? When we're looking at the flows of the product, if if we started off with 5 steps to get to the end of the room request, we then think to ourselves, hey, can we cut this down to 3 steps, to 2 steps, to 1 step? Can we cut it down as much as possible so that we really remove all friction in the product to get them to what they need? And because of the religious attention that we pay to this sort of thing, we are able to create products that people actually want to use. When, for example, when a guest uses it for the first time, we have data to show that they're going to come back to use it again for something else, or even the same thing again. They come in, they immediately see that, hey, I'm using this for room requests. I look at the buttons below in the product, and I know I can order room service from here. I can order food from here. I can book facilities. I can book a taxi from here. It's so obvious to them, and because of their experience using it, the good experience they had using it for the first time, whether it's any of these services, they will come back and they will continue using it. Most companies, what they do is, firstly, they deploy one thing only. It could be mobile check-in, just one thing, or room request, just one thing. And they do it in a way that is really clunky. People use it once, and I'm never going to come back again to do the same thing, let alone other things. And because of that, you have products that are launched that maybe on paper fulfill a certain purpose, but in practicality doesn't really move the needle for the hotel. They deploy a product like that, wow, it looks great, I get on the media, but does it deliver value? No, it doesn't. And you look at us, where we deploy at one hotel, two hotels in a group, suddenly the whole group looks at it and say, hey, how is this hotel doing so well? Why is this hotel able to generate the kind of results that other hotels are struggling to? And then they realize, hey, it's because of the Vouch solution. Let's roll it out across the rest of our hotels. We are able to continuously and repeatably do this, going from one hotel, two hotels, from a group to the whole group. And it's down to the attention that we pay to the products that we build, the UI, the UX, and lowering the barrier to entry. So hoteliers out there, what I would say is, not all digital concierges products are created equal. Look at the kind of results that they're able to drive. Look at what the company is really trying to do with their products. Are they trying to make this on paper useful to the hotel? or are they focused on what guests really want and how to drive the number of guest transactions, which is what we focus on. When we build products, we prioritize what guests want versus what the hotels want. Hotels may say, hey, I want this thing inside the digital concierge. We look at the data and we tell them, no, your guests aren't asking for this. Even if we build this, they're not going to use it. So don't do this other thing instead. And because of this information that we give them, they start to build their trust in us. They start to realize that, hey, Vouch knows what they're doing. They are focusing on the right things. They're able to build products that deliver real value to my hotel. I'm sorry I went on this diatribe, Jeremy, but that's really how we think about things. We prioritize what guests want versus what the hotels want.
Amazing. Well, that's a great way to wrap things up. And I love this product so much. And, I think that's why I really kind of endorse, I think, the way that you think about things. And, I think there are three things that really stood out for me from this conversation, from my notes. I think the first one is, I think your no BS, authentic reality about what it means to be a founder, both in, foolishly and naively leaving a cushy job with upward potential to being a founder, first-time founder, but actually the real stuff of deciding to be a second-time founder and decision to become a third-time founder. So I think that's a huge set of decisions that, had to be made. And I really, appreciate that honesty and reality, because it's going to be so important for so many other founders making that set of decisions about whether to keep going in the midst of failure. And the second thing, of course, I really appreciated was, I think, your advice on how to grow as a leader for yourself in the context of being a parent and how that's helped you become a better leader, but also in the context of whether and how parents should think about becoming a founder and how founders should think about becoming a parent. So a lot of real truth there. And lastly, of course, is, I love, you call it a diatribe, but, I call it your passion for solving this insane problem called, why is everything in the hotel taking so long and all of it getting botched? And why is such a pain in the ass to get it solved versus, hey, welcome to the real world of, the 21st century, which is like, we can do this on our own and self-serve approach. And I love the approach of how you've kind of unlocked not just a 10x solution, but also a 10x go-to-market. So honestly, Joseph, I'm so inspired by you, and I'm so happy that I've gotten to know who you are.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for your time, and thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you for listening to Brave. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share this episode with friends and colleagues. Sign up at www.jeremyau.com to discuss this episode with other community members in our forum. Stay well and stay brave.